Good evening. Welcome to the open caucus session for the Armstrong School District Board of Directors for Thursday, August 9th, 2018. Won't you please rise with me for a moment of reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Burdell.
Here.
Ms. Bowser. Here. Mr. Chauncey.
Here.
Mr. Elkin. Ms. Loach.
Here.
Dr. Lobby.
Here.
Mr. Mulroy.
Here.
Mr. Skate.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
The Board of School Directors of Armstrong School District convened an executive session on Thursday, August 9th at 6:45 p.m. in the Faculty Lounge of West Hills Intermediate School in Katanning for discussion of personnel and real estate.
Thank you. Any central office administrative reports?
We'll talk about them when we get into the agenda items. We have some items we need to explain.
Okay. At this time, are there any public comments on agenda items? Okay. We'll turn over to the regular meeting agenda for approval for August 13th. First thing, I always forget this. The minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I need, do I have consensus to add the minutes for the open caucus for June 14th, the regular meeting for June 18th, the special meeting for July 9th? I guess those are the three. Do I have consensus to add that to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Next item are bills. Looking for consensus to add food service fund for June and July, the capital projects fund for June and July, the athletic fund for May, and the presentation of bills for payment for June and July. Do I have consensus to add that?
Yes.
Okay. Personnel, this is, we do not have to do that. Education, a number of items. So do you want to, before we add that to the agenda, do you typically highlight anything from these items?
If there are any questions regarding any of those items, we'd be happy to give the specifics on it. The Ed 11, 12, and 13 is building Lenape Vo-Tech, and we own the special education teachers over there, and that is just an agreement we have with the other sending schools to split the costs. And then 14 and 15 is educational services such as PT and OT under the same philosophy. If we provide those people, and if they provide services, we have an agreement where they pay ADM per pupil cost.
Do you know how those costs are split? Do they pay by student, or any idea how the costs are split on the special education teachers?
Yeah, so you take a classroom and you take the kids in there. There's could be some Armstrong, could be some Freeport, whatever. So you take the total amount of kids, you take the total cost of that classroom, the teacher's cost, and I believe there's like $500 supply cost for each classroom. You just divide it up by the number of
By the
students.
percentage of kids from each district?
Right. So if it's 6,000 student and Freeport has 5 of them, they get charged 30,000.
Okay.
They pay us quarterly throughout the year. And that generates anywhere somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 reimbursements for the cost of those classrooms.
Any other questions or comments?
Ed 3, it's the Discovery Education. We're buying books. I'm assuming this is
We're buying access to digital textbooks. This year, with our continued improvement of tech devices and services, we're doing with science. Science is up for textbook renew. So this year would be a year where they go through and they review books for the possible purchase the next year. One of the things that I have looked at and continue to look at is to try and ensure that what we've invested in Chromebooks and technology, that we can make that sustainable so that, you know, down the road we'll be able to continue purchases. What that agreement is to pilot a digital book. Now, this is not a book. Every textbook now, when you buy it, comes with online access. Those are paper books that have been digitized. This book was designed to be a digital book. basically with online access. Some of it is, can be downloaded to devices. That's a dramatic departure for what we've had in the past. For that reason, I wanted to pilot the book. Now, I know there's some expense there and cost up front, but on the other side of that, I'm projecting if we go with that book series in grades 6 through 12, compared to what we typically spend, we'll save between $40,000 and $50,000. The book's quite exciting too. I mean, and it speaks to, how the kids, their modes of communication today with integrated video, just different add-ons and apps that are built right into the book. We're going to provide the access with our Chromebook devices this school year. I've had a number of teachers very, very excited about trying it out. Right now, I believe we have 12 out of a department of 18 who are going to try it with one or more sections.
Okay, the books, according to this, are, what, about $2,500?
Correct.
Okay, and there's another professional development for $2,800. We're spending more for a learning session than the books themselves.
To me, that's not a bad thing. And I'll tell you why. The licensure for the book speaks to what I said. That's why, if we end up going with that book on the other side, we could realize significant savings that I would like to see put back into technology so, we can start to push towards one-to-one in the classroom, where I think this model, and looking at that when our textbook core classes like math, ELA, when they come up for review, would allow us to keep our classroom devices refreshed, current, and usable at about what we had been paying for new textbook series, all right? Meaning we would get books and Chromebooks for every teacher in a department, all right? The teacher would have a cart unto themselves in the room. What we are doing right now, because it's what we can sustain, is about 2 teachers sharing a cart of 30. And it has been it's going really, really well. I mean, we have created demand for the Chromebooks to the point where we have people asking for PD sessions. Typically, with any book, you're going to have a day of PD up front. With this one in particular, just because of the departure from what, typical book series is, it's a need.
Have you decided the 25 participants that would go through the training? It says this is good for up to 25.
It's good for up to 25. What I did was met with the science department through the spring. I met with department head, Christy Orlowski. We had some discussions. I had some informal discussions with different science teachers. We did not go out and force this on anybody. I put it out, explained to them basically what I said here, just now, relative to the cost effectiveness and its ability to help us support technology sustainability. And it generated significant interest among teachers. I have some that want to pilot. I said, look, to keep the cost down, we're going to look at a section. We might be able to weasel maybe 2 sections if we don't have a lot of takers. But I had, out of the department I believe has, I want to say 19, don't quote me on that, between the 2 buildings at the high school level. We also have 6th grade teachers who are interested in piloting. So we kind of, we limited it to 1 section of kids, and the overall participation in that training would be the 12th secondary and 6th elementary, grade 6 elementary.
Yeah, I think the real value with that is taking advantage of that, the capacity for people participating in that, and then having them go out and sort of support other people. That if this eventually goes the way it does, then they'll be the power users, so to speak, and can support other teachers as well. I mean, this is what they're doing in college. I work at a college, and we're going to this as well. I mean, it's embedded throughout the curriculum. You have to. Learning takes place in a different way than it used to, and a lot of it is through the devices, and maybe too much in some cases, but that's where learning is occurring. And so you have to kind of meet them halfway or even more than halfway, and this kind of accomplishes it. So I support, I especially like the idea that you're doing your due diligence too. You're not just jumping all in with this. This is our first foray into this, so you can see how it works and assess it. And if it does what it's supposed to do, then we go further down the road. Any other questions about this or any other ed item from 1 to 15? Okay, do I have consensus to add Ed 1 through Ed 15 to the agenda for Monday?
Yes.
Business, we have 5 items. Business 1 is a copier agreement, and then some contracts, looks like mainly through the cafeteria. So do I have consensus to add business 1 through business 5 to the agenda?
Yes.
Any discussion, or probably nothing to highlight except the kind of ice cream that's going to be fun?
Yeah, the copy agreements with Wilson Group who's our current company. We brought them in 4 years ago. We saved about $70,000 the last time we brought them in. We're refreshing a year early on the agreement. We're going to still save, you saw, about $26,000 over the life of the next 5 years. And then for business 2, 3, 4, and 5, based on the recommendations of the food service department and them going out for bid, this would award the contracts to those successful bidders.
So we have one bid on the food that's going to Clarion County, but we have a local company that is $2,000 higher. I mean, I'd rather see the money stay in the county than go to Clarion.
Which one is that business?
That is that's the produce, I believe. Is that
That's
what
the
you're referring to?
produce, yeah. It's 50-some
Yeah,
thousand
it's-
with
it's,
52.
Less than 2,000, I believe, difference.
Yeah.
The money for this produce, part of it is coming from the federal government through the school lunch program.
Right.
So we have to follow requirements of the federal government. Pennsylvania, for example, does not require the bidding for any perishable food. You can negotiate and obtain whoever you wish to use for providing it. The federal government's cutoff is $150,000. So although our school district apparently typically bids regardless, you could consider contacting either of these two companies or any other company and seeing if you can talk down their price at all. So if you could bring that, Dentici is one of the bidders. If you bring them in line, you go ahead and do it. It quite frankly enables you to play people off against each other, suppliers.
There's actually a representative here from Dentici.
There's also a situation where you're allowed to take into account the quality of the product and the service you get in terms of delivery.
I can meet with Louie Fee on Monday. She's available. Have a discussion with her based on this. I'm not sure if she has worked with, I assume we've worked with Clarion Food Company before. I'm not sure whether she's worked with the other provider or not. And just to see, I'm assuming she went based on the low bid.
Yeah, she went based on, yes, apparently that's her recommendation.
On the overall low bid. I mean, some of the products, one company was lower than the other, but I think she prefers to just use one company for everything. And, based on this, it was about $1,500 difference.
Yeah.
But I could have a discussion with her Monday.
Anything else?
Yeah, on the printers, the old contract was 4 or 5 years ago, and at that time, they had 68 units we were paying for. This group, because of
It's the
consolidation.
same group.
Right, but now we have 39. this covers 39 units according to the list. There was a list within the backup.
You mean prior to Wilson
No,
Group coming on?
this is the list that was in the backup
Okay.
of what was presented online, that's all. It showed so many computers, so many printers were going to each school.
Correct.
Okay, that added 39.
Okay.
That's my comment. The number of printers have gone down drastically.
Well, and it's not the current contract we're under, it went down.
Right.
2 contracts ago, when we had RICO.
That's the RICO number
39 is the Wilson Group number.
for this,
This is-
right?
We are currently with Wilson.
Right.
We're going to renew another contract with Wilson.
Okay.
We were with RICO before, and that's when we had 70-some.
Big number, okay.
We asked them to come in. We had 2 different companies come in and give us a proposal. We didn't do an RFP. We had them come in and go to all our buildings and make a recommendation on how to right-size the ship. And they came back at the time and said, you only need 38, 39, 40, whatever it may be. That's how we saved a significant amount of money.
Okay, that
And
was,
plus, we consolidated too. We didn't need as many
And the machines
machines.
have gotten more efficient too.
okay, and they're giving, donating 10 new printers. Are those floor models, desktops, what are those?
Those are desktop.
Desktop.
Those are just brothers, the onesie-twosie type copying.
Okay. And they'll just be scattered throughout?
As for the
needed?
needs that the technology department
All right,
sees
thanks.
fit.
Any other questions about business items 1 through 5? Do I have consensus to add business 1 through 5 to the agenda on Monday?
Yes.
Construction, C1. Describe that.
Yeah, there's one item, we're asking for approval of change order at the West Shamokin Stadium project. As you know, we are contracted with AstroTurf to put the turf in, and there's some other site work that went along with that project, mainly sidewalks around the perimeter of the field, as well as what this change order pertains to is actually in front of the home bleachers. Right now, there is some old asphalt, as well as about a 2-foot section that's cut out from the asphalt to the field that's, right now is just nothing but dirt. It was not addressed in the specs, except to just put grass in, which makes no sense to put grass in that section. What they need to do is they need to put, and I know there is a section here about a drainage. There's going to be a drain that goes the length of that concrete slab in front of the home bleachers, tear out the asphalt and put brand new concrete in at the price of $22,000. And I will say that they did put in a concrete slab on the visitor side at no charge. It was a smaller section on those bleachers. It was kind of rough over there. Instead of trying to put old in with new, they just ripped out the old and put in a whole new slab in. And they did not charge us additional for that.
Any questions or comments? Do I have approval to add C1 to the agenda on Monday? Student transportation services, approval of bus drivers. Do I have consensus to add STS1 to the agenda?
Yes.
Policy, number of policy items 1 through 7. Solicitor want to highlight this change.
Number 1, it's simply conforming our guidelines to the sports offerings we're doing this year. However, you do want to note there is a provision there concerning our admission prices. Those are changing. And I assume if there's any questions, it would be directed to you, Sam. for
This is based on the record.
why you're setting that rate.
You know, it's based on the recommendation of both athletic departments, but our cost of security is going up. We're adding additional security. The cost of officials are going up, and obviously we put major improvements into both locations at both Armstrong and West Shamokin.
Item number 2 concerns electronic communication devices. The big picture of this policy, which is brand new, you have not updated your policy for a number of years, is recognizing, administration is recommending that you recognize the fact that a lot of students have their own personal devices that they bring to school and they use. Some are using them for educational purposes. Some of them are simply using them for communication with their parents during the day for whatever reason or after school. This policy is blanketly saying that the board permits all students to use their own personal devices on a campus. as well as at approved school events and activities. Then it's deferring to the administration, the building administrators, and the superintendent of each building as to how far they want to go with that blanket permission based upon the nature of their student body and the age of the students, things like that, okay? This policy does, though, have things that the administration cannot overrule the policy on their own. And those primarily are in the area of things that could result in misuse. For example, they can't be used in any classroom. The kid has to have them off and out of sight for test takings, unless the classroom teacher, for example, would say, I will let you use it for particular parts of a test. Maybe they go on the internet to show they're capable of doing research, or maybe it's used as a calculator. But they can't be used in locker rooms, bathrooms, or dressing rooms. And I think this day and age of sexting, you know what we're talking about there. We don't want kids taking pictures of other kids. So they're not permitted to be in locker rooms, bathrooms, or dressing rooms and operating. And again, the building principal and the superintendent cannot overrule that portion of a policy. The same goes with bullying and using them for harassing purposes. You know, we have cyberbullying policies as well. But if you want to take a look through that, if you have any other questions. But again, the concept for Monday, the concept again is blanket approval. The kids can bring them, provided their parents give permission to bring their own devices. But then it's going to be up to the individual building administrators to set how far they want to go with that blanket permission. It is a somewhat decentralized policy, again, except for the district-wide prohibitions that are in there. Mr. Williams put a lot of effort into it. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Oh, well, we are not prepared, and this isn't really moving towards full BYOD, meaning we will not be permitting them necessarily on our network to start the school year. I think that there's value in that. I also think that there's value, and I worked with the principals through the spring to talk about how we wanted to do this. You know, to me, it's something that they should, and what we talked about is working with the faculty, working with the kids, and teaching responsible use versus, you know, a notion that I don't really think is true, that the kids take them out of their pockets and lock them in their lockers. And there is some educational value there in the classroom for that. So.
Okay, so what we're saying is every building could have a different general policy.
Yes, with the restrictions that there are things they cannot overrule that are district-wide, that are listed in the policy.
Okay. Now, this came right out of the policy. Unless the teacher determines otherwise, devices must be turned off upon entering any instructional area.
Right.
So now we're having every teacher determine, that's what it said in the...
That's instructional areas, and that's their classroom.
So...
Remember, we have kids who are using them in hallways, cafeterias, and yes, probably some who are surreptitiously using them in the classroom.
Elsewhere, right.
We're not allowing that unless the teacher says you can have them. If the teacher says they can have them, they're to be used for educational reasons during that classroom.
Okay. May be used in the library and a study hall if authorized by the teacher. Here again, we've got 400 and some odd teachers, and we're going to have 400 and some odd policies.
If they use it, see, some may say we don't want you using them at all. But if they allow them to use it, again, it's for educational purposes as opposed to social media or socializing or calling friends.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to have a wide discrepancy in that, okay? I've had close meetings with the principals as their supervisor at the secondary level, and I did inform our elementary people that, you know, their stuff should remain status quo. You know, this is I don't think for that age level, something that, you know, they want to open up. But I expect with the secondary buildings, we're gonna develop similar things. Now, yeah, are you gonna have from teacher to teacher, just like we have different rules? Some teachers are, you can't have gum in here. Those things kind of vary room to room also.
And to me, the default is they now have to be turned off unless otherwise known. So, so they don't have to make the call at all unless they want to have them on. So they're not going to have to decide, each and every class what happens. And I would expect at the beginning of the school year, following syllabus or guidelines, here's my policy on that. And it'll be clear, and I don't think it's going to be every single class period where there's going to be this mass confusion.
Okay, so we have no problem with them using in a study hall and the library. Here again, it's
Yeah,
authorized by the teacher.
Yeah, what Mr. Smith is saying is correct. The board policy is they can use them if permitted by whoever is conducting the study hall or library.
Exactly. I was always taught a study hall was for studying and test.
But
You're
that's
making
the
an
point.
assumption that they're using it for nefarious purposes, or they're not using it to complete their schoolwork.
That's the point in terms of educational purpose when they're using.
You're trying to tell, we're gonna have students emailing, I'm gonna be emailing Dr. Lobby in the middle of the study hall, because we're buddies and we're one out later. Or I'm gonna be trying to make out with somebody.
She'll be Snapchat.
That's gonna happen anyway. That's happening right now.
Your point's well taken. But that's why some teachers may say, you guys are abusing it, we're not gonna let you use them in the study hall anymore.
Okay, but it goes, every teacher's gonna make that decision, every student's gonna have a little notebook on what teacher allows what.
There's gonna be a building level, as I said, for myself and working with the principals, from the principals to the teachers. We will work towards some consistency. Now, may there be a teacher that permits that in their study hall and one other one doesn't? That's, it's back to what I said. We have inconsistencies like that right now. It just doesn't pertain to technology.
Having been there a few years ago, okay, obviously I haven't been there recently, but I think this is a good policy because when I was there, you had some teachers that, again, enforced the rules strictly, and if a kid had a phone, they took it. That creates a problem then with the kids that have phones and the teachers don't take it. So I think giving the teacher, and specifically saying, yes, the teacher has the right to say, you cannot use those in my classroom, or more specifically, needs to say, you can use those in my classroom. I think that gives the teacher more power than they had before.
Well, and what I would add to that is that's the feedback that I've gotten from many teachers, is that we're in an awkward position here. When the kids, when to take it, when to not, and that's generated a fair amount of inconsistency.
And I think there are times in study halls when kids would use the cell phones. They have a calculator on them that they can use, or they might need to look up some information about somebody. I do think there are some uses there that would be valuable, and it's easier at this point in time to say, yeah, go ahead and use what you have, instead of fighting about, no, you shouldn't have it. So.
And you probably have students now, I don't know if very many bring laptops, but you see a lot of kids with iPads that they use for purposes of research and study. Again, tying into your book purchase, digital books.
And I'll tell you, I was a by-the-rule person, but it got me in trouble a lot of times, or on the wrong side of kids or so on. So I think this is a good move.
Yeah, please note, this policy was reworded and updated. I think it was pretty late today, 3 o'clock, that it probably hit your board packets. The basic concept is still there, but I tried to make it more user-friendly when you read through it. So once you look at it over the weekend, you'll see it, but the same concepts are there.
Any other questions or concerns about policy items?
A if you want me to go on.
Yeah. Go on.
Okay. I feel like I'm the one that's keeping you here late. The next policy item has to do with the substitute policy, hiring substitutes. That's merely conforming to our use of source for teachers, where we also get aides and people like that from there. Item number 4, acceptable use of the internet policy, what's commonly referred to as an acceptable use policy. This does tie in somewhat to the use of personal devices, electronic devices. That is simply being updated to conform to the fact that we now have Google G Suites. So that's what that's doing. The next one, social media policy for our staff. Quite frankly, that policy is basically setting out a best practice concept. We do have a policy about communicating on the internet with children and students by any of our adults. All of their communications with students have to be through our internet system or communication system, where the kids have an ID number and the teachers have it. But this policy is also talking about teachers, what they may put on their Facebook pages and what people may see alerting to them. In this day and age, you need to be careful about what you do in terms of pictures and things like that, of what you're doing in your personal life, and maybe realizing or not realizing that students are looking at them, and parents. The last policy is food and nutrition. We seem like we're always updating that policy, but that's all, again, because of the free lunch program from the federal government. The 2 big items that are being changed in this policy or updated are a more simplified method that we're now going to be allowed to use to identify potentially eligible students, and how their parents get notified of that. Quite frankly, that helps the students, the parents, and our program. Because the more free and reduced kids we have, the more money we get reimbursed for. The other is the collection methods for children who don't pay, students who don't pay for their lunch and they get behind. The collection methods have to go directed toward the parent or guardian and not toward the student. And the student continues to get a meal even if they have exceeded the balance on their credit card, so to speak, their debit card. Those are the 2 changes in there.
Did you skip policy 6, or was?
Item number 6, that was a rescission, so I didn't really pay too much attention to speak to that. What's your question?
I'm asking why we're rescinding this policy.
It really doesn't serve any purpose anymore, because our professional services are contracted, or they're collective bargaining, or administrative compensation plan.
The policy says it's for the purpose of providing accountability.
Okay.
And it's, not everyone we have, not every provider has a contract, does it?
All of our outside providers are under contract. I can't think of one who isn't.
When we have a contractor come in and put a sidewalk down or whatever.
Those are not, that's not what this is about. This is about
At
those
will.
providing professional, educational professional type services. Alternative education services, for example, we have potentially a whole number of contractors that we use if we have to place students out of our school district. We have a number of them are available that we pay on a per unit, per student price, and the amount of time that they're in that alternative school. That would be an example of things that are covered by a separate contract with them.
All right,
And
thank
those
you.
contracts include requiring them to have clearances and all those kind of things.
I guess my understanding of what an at-will provider is incorrect. That's all.
No, I don't think it's incorrect. You brought up a good point. How do we know that these people are going to do their job without this policy? But again, they're all on individual contracts. I can't think of one entity that isn't.
Any other questions or comments on the policy items?
And that was not my train.
Yeah, it's pulling out here.
I thought that was a hint.
Do I have consensus to add the policy items to the agenda on Monday? Okay, and then last thing is Gen 1, establishment of a co-op sponsorship for rifle. Anything more to add on that?
That's the co-op for West Shamokin and Armstrong to participate in the rifle team together. We heard the presentation back this spring.
Good. Do I have consensus to add that to the agenda? Okay, back over to the.
Excuse me,
Yes.
one question on that. How do they get from West Shamokin to practice to North Buffalo?
Be able to run a shuttle, I assume.
I'm not even sure if we're running a shuttle for the Armstrong kids. We'll have to find out with the athletic director whether the students are, I'm assuming, because I don't think they even brought that up, about asking for shuttle to be provided. Remember, they were just asking for transportation to the matches, that was it.
Right.
I think they were going to, parents and students would have to provide their own transportation to practices. But we can check on that.
Yeah, I recall getting them there, parents picking them up. We'll check for Monday.
Is that for Armstrong also? How does Armstrong get from Armstrong to North
I
Buffalo?
think
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
We're going to check on that.
How do they get to the golf course to practice?
Well, there's,
We provide transportation to practice?
not for golf. I don't think we.
I don't want to give you an all or nothing answer. I think some kids.
As long as we're uniform.
Yeah.
Whatever we used to.
I don't think we do for golf.
We'll check, we'll get that, we'll get the
Yeah,
answer.
that's a good point, though. Do I have consensus to add that to the agenda? Okay, back over to the open caucus session. Does anybody have, well, I guess, is there anything in our folder information?
Yeah, there's a letter from Ford City Borough inviting myself and members of the board to attend a development and redevelopment meeting regarding properties in Ford City, of which, as you all know, we still hold the Ford City property. I haven't got the specifics regarding the dates and times of that meeting. When I get the formal invitation, I will forward it to the board to see if there's any interest in attendance from any one of you. I will be there for sure. But certainly, there's a number of representatives who are asked to be there as well. There's dates for back-to-school nights in all of our buildings in your information folder. And then a couple items that aren't in your information folder that I'd like Mr. Price to address. We've got a request for a commercial property, LERTA, from West Franklin Township, and I'll let Mr. Price speak to the specifics of that.
There previously was one there. Again, this is a commercial one, commercial, industrial, and retail. We participated in it, and it expired in 2014. It was a 5-year program. Started in 2009, expired in 2014. West Franklin is asking us to reactivate it and let it run for 20 years, which would be June 9th, 2029. We don't know what your pleasure is. 20. The program would exist for 20 years, and there's a 10-year staggering down of deferral of real estate taxes, exemption of real estate taxes. And it's the typical abatement schedule that we've seen from our other participations. The first year is 100% on improvements or new construction, again, commercial. And by the 10th year, they're paying 90% of the taxes. And then after the 10th year, they're paying 100% of the taxes on the improvements.
How's this usually handled?
Historically, the board has, any municipality that's wanted it, you have said yes to it. In fact, I think you have a policy right now where you got kind of said, if anybody wants it, we'll agree to participate in it. That is what you've been doing. Like I said, this one, though, expired in 2/14. I don't know why they want to reactivate it now. May want to question or have administration ask West Franklin why they want to bring it back. Is it for a particular purpose, or whether, again, they're just hoping to generate improvements to their tax base and commercial development?
Yeah, we can certainly call
Yeah.
and see if they are
So,
aware of anything that we're not aware of in terms of attracting some type of business into the area.
would it be correct that you don't want to put this on the agenda yet? You want to find out and see about it for next month?
The request came in June 30th or July 30th to our office.
And I think it's very reasonable to push this off a month.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Armstrong County is thinking of creating a countywide land bank. A land bank is a concept that operates as a separate public entity under Pennsylvania law, but it has to be established by a municipality or county that has a population, I believe, of over 30,000. So most of our municipalities could not establish their own separate land bank within Armstrong County. So the county is thinking of starting one. Part of the concept is the county targets specific properties in municipalities that want to participate. They can't do it unless the municipality participates. And they would acquire the properties, be it at a sheriff's sale or out of the delinquent tax depository. They would then try to actively market it and try to find someone who will now buy the property and fix it up. Some land banks, the money they make on the resale of properties, they funnel it back into the land bank, and they may actually acquire some property and do some renovation to it, and then, I'll use the word flip it to another buyer. What their concept is presently is there would be an entry fee of $500 for any municipality that wants to participate, including the school district. And then they also want to have the municipality and the school district, if it were to participate, agree that if they manage to sell or flip a property, that we would reimburse the land bank. What was their proposal? You went to the meeting?
Yeah, it was retention of half the taxes for 5 years.
That we would take half the taxes that we get from it and give half of it to the land bank to continue funding their ongoing program. They have not drafted an ordinance to that effect yet, or bylaws. If we want to participate, we would eventually enter into what's called an intergovernmental cooperation agreement with the county land bank. And right now, that's what they anticipate our obligation would be. Pay a one-time $500 fee to the land bank, help get it started, and agree for any properties they flip. Some of them we're not getting anything anyway because they're in the repository for delinquent taxes. And be willing to pay back to the land bank one half of the taxes we collect over a 5-year period. My understanding is the county and the municipality would be doing likewise. What they're asking you at this time is not to say that you will do it, but whether you're willing to consider it. And they're asking for a letter of intent from the school district that we're willing to consider it. I think the reason why is maybe they feel they really may not be able to sustain the land bank unless the school districts whose taxes are a different rate than all the municipalities in county, we're willing to help fund it by doing it that way.
I think the
Land banks do not have to be established in that method of, paying real estate taxes, but it is one of the ways that they sustain themselves. There aren't a whole lot of counties that have done this in Pennsylvania.
There are 17 across the state, we were told.
I think Westmoreland might be the closest.
Yeah, Westmoreland, I think, is probably the most active right now. They actively try to market these properties. I don't know how successful they have been. The other thing you want to keep in mind, I want to alert you that if you do this, I suggest you demand it. You have a right to have participation on the board. Not required, but I think if you would go into this down the road, I think part of your condition should be that you have a board member on that land bank. That's my suggestion to you. Obviously, you don't have to follow that.
There were 3 municipalities involved, Ford City Borough, Catania Borough, and I believe East Franklin.
So far, they're the ones
I
that
think.
have shown interest.
I think that's,
And wasn't Apollo also in Armstrong County?
yeah.
And Apollo.
So it's whether you want to consider giving them a letter of intent. If you do, they gave us a model one. I think it would be touched up, and we can have it for you to see over the weekend. Or again, you can wait till next month, if you want to even consider the idea of
How do they identify the land to market? Like, how was
They,
that?
they take dilapidated properties, for lack of a better word, or tax delinquent properties that are already in the repository.
Right.
Or it could be a foreclosure sale, where a bank is trying to get out of a mortgage for somebody that's abandoned the property, and sometimes they can get those cheap. And then their idea is to flip it, but flip it to people who are gonna do something to improve the property.
Or they even suggest it might be a really bad property and they demo it. Where adjacent
Yes,
property
that's
owner,
another example.
an adjacent property owner might want to just buy that piece of property for an empty lot next to their nice house, where there might be a dilapidated house next to it, which then that property would at least go into tax rules.
Right. That's my question is to you, and I don't know if you know it, but I mean, of all those dilapidated properties and all those problem areas, we probably don't get a whole lot from that anyhow.
We're getting nothing.
Right, I mean,
That's the point, you're
Yeah.
kind of taking a proactive move. I mean, I'm sure there's some downside, like there's to everything, but the upside is you can take a property that you're not getting anything from now anyways, and trying to be proactive about it and trying to get something out of it.
Did you say that it has to be the population has to be 30,000?
That's why the county's the only one in Armstrong. who
So it
can
has
do
to be the entire county?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
but they can establish it, but individual municipalities don't have to participate,
they don't.
okay?
But they're included in the 30,000 even if they elect not to participate?
Yeah, it's your potential population.
Okay.
Again, we don't have a municipality that has that many
Right.
people, but countywide we do. So in our particular case, it's only the county who can actually establish the land bank. There's not a municipality that could do it on their own. And school districts are not allowed to establish a land bank. We are only allowed to participate in it.
No, I don't remember what all municipalities we've done LERTAs for or whatever, but how would the tax situation fit in with the LERTA for people?
Well, that's,
who
yeah,
own the
that's
property?
something that the land bank is just gonna have to recognize that, yeah, if it's a property that's also in a LERTA zone, there's not gonna be any taxes for us to pay over to them. But remember, those taxes are not 100% exempt. They start out for year one 100%, then it staggers down to 90, 80, 70, 60. So at some point in year two, there's actually some taxes.
And that's a very good point, because I'm sure they're not even aware of that. They haven't thought about that. Because that never came up in our conversation, but you're right. I mean, after 5 years, they're not gonna collect a whole lot. Especially if they're giving half back to us, or we're giving half to them.
Yeah, if it's a
Most of them
LERTA,
now, we've agreed to residential LERTAs, almost countywide. almost.
Yeah, I think it's almost every.
It's almost everybody now.
municipality.
well, it's primarily coming out of the Department of Planning and Development. I suspect they think about that.
Well, they were
But
sitting,
they're the ones
they
that
they were
help
sitting
push
at the
the LERTA
table,
concept.
there wasn't a conversation about it.
Well, you may want to mention that to them to see
Right.
when they begin to seriously look at the sustainability of it. Obviously, the municipalities that would be most effective would be Ford City and Katanning Borough, I would think.
So they're looking to see if we would have interest, basically.
Yeah, if we just flat out are saying, no, we don't even want to look into it, they want to know that because it may not be worth them moving forward.
I mean, unless the administration or you have any problems with it, I don't have any problem adding it to the agenda and saying that we would possibly be interested in this. I mean, we can still do our due diligence and ask our questions and without any obligation. You guys okay with that, administrators?
Yeah. If the school district gets on it, is that going to create a coattail effect for Manor Township and Manorville, Gilpin? Well, everybody say, hey, now the school district's all in favor of this. Now let's everybody join.
Again, I don't know, I wouldn't say that we would be the engine. I think what the land bank proponents are looking at is they won't be able to sustain themselves unless the district's there. What the municipalities contribute in tax dollars, if I were a municipality, I would join. What do you have to lose? $500. Because your tax base is where it is in terms of millage and things like that.
Based on,
I suspect it wouldn't go too far if the school district would not ultimately participate, would be my hunch.
but based on the meeting that we were at, they're identifying 4 of the bigger municipalities within the county right now to start this. Okay, the other ones haven't even expressed interest. Katanning did, Ford City, again, East Franklin, and Apollo. The land bank is not, they don't want to overextend themselves until this gets established and they get a good thing going.
Those were the target areas.
Those are target
to
areas
begin.
right now.
So, do all the municipalities forfeit half of their taxes to
The ones who
land bank?
join,
Yes.
The one-
They-
so both the municipality, the county, and the district
yes.
would
Now,
all give half of their.
I believe the county. I'm assuming that they're going to, but the municipalities, yes, and the school district, yes. I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't have assumed it, that the county would be doing likewise. Because again, the land bank, although it's established by the county, it's like an authority. It becomes its own separate entity. And I think, again, if you choose to join it, you could say, we'll only do it if the county municipality are contributing their share. That's the LERTA concept. We've said we'd only do it if you're doing it.
Any other questions? You guys have anything else?
Just the one item,
Would you want us to draft something for Monday to take a look at? Again, you can vote it up or down at that point, or
I'm fine
table
with
it.
that, so.
Yeah.
you guys-
this isn't a change order at the project out of West Shamokin, but it's an issue that we need to consider. We have, as part of the project, there's asphalt that needs to be touched up on the other side of by the visiting bleachers. It's about $15,500 worth of asphalt that's going over there to complete the project. The issue for us, to get the equipment to the other side of the field, he has to drive his equipment between 2 fenced areas on top of walkway asphalt that's 193 feet long by 6 feet wide. Based on my discussions with the contractor who's going to get the bid to do the work, he can't get his machine over without ruining the walkway. I had a phone conversation with him. I went out and looked at it. Sam and Josh have seen it. I believe that his machine is several tons in weight. That would be the only section of the field that would be a mess at the conclusion of the project if we didn't consider doing it. I don't know if there's any contractor who can do that paving without doing it that way. That's the only way you could possibly get to that section. I don't have a formal price from the contractor I spoke to, it was a verbal conversation. It's something I think we should pursue. I can certainly get a formal written proposal from him in an effort, in a timeline to see when he could complete that work. He's actually hesitant to take he's worried of some type of claim from us saying he damaged property in an effort to get his job done. So it's something that I can have further discussion, have him submit something in writing for the board to consider.
He's scheduled to do his work for AstroTurf under the contract and the specs next week. On the regular portion of what
Yeah.
he's done. He wants to complete that when he's out there.
The price he quoted me on the phone was about $6,500. I'm not sure it's going to change much from that conversation, but I'll find out when I get it. As soon as I get it, I'll forward it to you.
I don't have many options, right? It's gotta get over.
The only
to
option we
Dale's.
have, if we don't do it in that park where all of our visiting fans would walk,
Yeah.
it's going to be like gravel.
And that's the case for any contractor would be
Yeah,
out there.
there's no other way you can get there without sinking their equipment. That's all I have.
Anything from board members under other?
Doesn't need board approval. It's just a repair.
If you do it, that has to be a formal vote.
Right.
People speaking up.
Yeah, I'll bring it back.
Nothing else from board members? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Burdell, I need a second. Ms. Lowe, all those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned, thank you.